Imagine getting a wedding invitation from the man who destroyed your life. My ex-husband, Garrett, sent me one. He left me 4 years ago with our twins and just $700 a month. Now he wanted me to watch him marry Tessa, the woman he left me for. The invitation was printed on expensive paper we could never afford, but the real insult was the handwritten note inside that said, "No hard feelings." Then I saw the date he chose for his new beginning, June 15th, our old anniversary. That single detail ignited a fire inside me. He expected a broken woman to show up. He was about to be deeply disappointed. My name is Rebecca, and this is how I arrived at his wedding, in a billionaire's private jet, with our children, to tell the truth and ruin his perfect day. You will want to stay with me because he never saw what happened next. If you have ever been told you are not enough by the person who should have loved you most, this story will remind you that your worth was never theirs to define. And the best revenge? It is not destruction, it is freedom. The elegant invitation felt like a physical blow. Inside, his new life with Tessa was spelled out in fancy script. My hand shook as I read it. The small apartment was silent. My coffee sat cold on the counter. For a second, I thought about tearing the whole thing to pieces, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. Then I read his personal, handwritten note. His familiar handwriting filled the small card. It was the same script he once used for love letters. He wrote that he hoped I would come, so our kids could see both parents moving forward and happy. The note ended with two casual words. Best, Garrett. And then, that phrase again, no hard feelings. I read it 3 times. The words felt like a cruel joke. No hard feelings about the affair, the lies, or the divorce settlement that left me struggling to survive. I checked the date one more time. June 15th, our wedding anniversary. The invitation slipped from my numb fingers. That single, cruel detail sent my mind reeling back 4 years. I had been in the kitchen making spaghetti, his favorite dinner. Our 4-year-old twins were laughing and playing with blocks on the floor. Garrett walked in, and his eyes were completely empty. "We need to talk," he announced. "I want a divorce." It was that sudden. There was no warning, and no chance to save our family. He explained that he had met someone who truly understood him. He waved a hand at me, at our home, as if it were all meaningless. When I whispered and asked who it was, he said her name, Tessa, my friend, a woman who had been my bridesmaid. The divorce was a nightmare. His lawyer was a shark. Mine was fresh out of law school because he was all I could afford. Garrett kept the house, the savings, and the retirement funds. The court ruled that since being a stay-at-home mother was my choice, I was entitled to almost nothing. I received $700 a month in child support. That was it. For 4 years, I worked 2 different jobs just to cover rent. I made secret visits to the food bank and endured phone calls from his mother, Patricia, who blamed me for the affair. Worst of all, I only saw my children, Evan and Emma, on weekends. I had become invisible. I glanced at an old wedding photo on the shelf. I barely recognized the smiling 27-year-old woman who believed in happy endings. My laptop pinged. It was an email from Julian. "I am here when you are ready," it said. I met Julian 18 months ago when I spilled coffee all over his laptop. He was so kind about it and just laughed. I did not realize he was a tech billionaire until our 5th date. We had kept our relationship quiet. He understood my situation and never pushed for more. He just waited. As I was thinking of him, my doorbell rang loudly, making me jump. A man in a professional suit was standing there, holding a package marked confidential. My heart hammered against my ribs as I signed for the package. I locked the door and stared at the heavy, official-looking envelope. There was no return address. I opened it slowly. Inside, I found plane tickets and a handwritten note from Julian. You deserve to walk into that room like you own the world, he wrote. Because you do. Tears blurred my vision. Beneath his note was a thick stack of documents. My hands trembled as I read through them. They were Garrett's financial records. They showed hidden bank accounts, secret asset transfers, and properties in his mother's name. It was clear, undeniable evidence that he had hidden millions during our divorce. At the very bottom of the stack was a signed letter from Marcus Caldwell, Garrett's business partner. I was a coward, he wrote. I documented everything. I am sorry it took me this long. This is enough to reopen your case. I sank down to the kitchen floor. The papers spread all around me. Julian had been investigating Garrett this entire time. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister, Diane. Are you okay? I looked from the papers on the floor to the wedding invitation on the counter. I typed back, "Can you come over now? I need you." Her reply came instantly. On my way, 15 minutes. For the first time in 4 years, I smiled. It was not a happy smile. When Diane burst through the door, I simply handed her the invitation. Her face went from concerned to furious. "He invited you to his wedding on your anniversary?" she gasped. "And he wrote, 'No hard feelings'? Is he insane?" She insisted that I should not go. But then she saw the look in my eyes. "There is something else," she said. "What is it?" I passed her the heavy package. She read through the contents, her eyes getting wider with each page. "Holy hell," she whispered, looking up at me. "He hid all of this, and Julian, your Julian, found it?" I took a deep breath and nodded, finally ready to tell her everything. It all started at that little coffee shop on 7th Street. I had an accident and spilled coffee all over his laptop. He just laughed. We started talking, and he was so kind and funny. He was present in a way Garrett never was. We began dating, keeping it casual at first, but then I fell for him and he fell for me. I couldn't tell a soul, not even you or the kids. If Garrett found out I was seeing someone with money, he would drag me back to court. He would fight to reduce child support, claiming I no longer needed it. Diane's jaw tightened. That sounds exactly like him. So we hid our relationship completely. No posts on social media, no public dates, just us. Julian understood. He said he knew I had to protect the twins and that he could wait. He has been waiting for 18 months. I keep pushing him away because I am so scared. Scared of what? Of him leaving. Of him deciding I am not worth the trouble. Of him turning out to be just like Garrett. It is not fair to Julian, I know. He has never given me a single reason to doubt him, but I cannot shake the feeling. Diane reached out and took her sister's hand. You know you are not the problem here, right? Am I not? Garrett spent years convincing you that you were. He tore you down and made you feel small. He made you believe you were lucky he stayed with you for as long as he did. But that was all a lie, Becca. Every word of it. Becca pulled away and walked to the window. Outside, life looked so normal. He told me I lacked ambition. He said I let myself go and that I was boring. He was cheating on you with your own friend. His opinion is worthless. But what if there was some truth to it? I was so busy with the twins and trying to be the perfect wife, maybe I did forget how to be interesting. Maybe I forgot how to be myself. Stop it. Stop what? Stop defending that man. Stop making excuses for what he did to you. I am not. Yes, you are. You are doing it right now. Diane stood up and walked over to her sister. Listen to me. Garrett Sullivan is a liar and a cheat. He stole from you. He hid assets from the court. He committed a crime. And you are standing here wondering if you were not pretty enough for him. Becca's eyes filled with tears. I look at the woman in our wedding photos, and I do not even know who she is anymore. She is still in there. She has just been beaten down for so long she forgot how to stand up for herself. The tears finally came, hot and angry. Diane pulled her into a hug as Becca sobbed into her shoulder. All the grief she had held back for 4 years came pouring out. I am so tired, Diane. I am so tired of struggling and pretending that I am okay when I feel like I am drowning. I know. I work 2 jobs, and I still cannot afford to buy the kids new shoes. I cannot give them anything. You give them love. That is more than Garrett ever did. Is it really enough? It is everything. They stood in the kitchen until Becca's crying finally slowed. Becca pulled away, wiping her eyes with a weak laugh. I got snot all over your shirt. He wants to fly us there on his private plane. Me, the kids, and you, if you want to go. Diane's eyes widened. Your boyfriend has a private plane? He is not my boyfriend. Okay, fine. My boyfriend has a private plane, and you were worried you were not interesting enough? Girl, you are dating a man with a private plane. You basically won the lottery. Becca could not help but smile. He wants the twins to officially meet him. He says we have been hiding for long enough. He is right. But what if they hate him? What if they love him? That could be even worse. You cannot protect them from everything, and you cannot protect yourself from everything. Sometimes you just have to take a chance. Becca looked at the invitation, then at the evidence against Garrett. He invited me because he wants his new wife to see me struggling. He wants to show everyone that he upgraded, then prove him wrong. How? Show up looking like $1,000,000, with a man who truly loves you, and with your kids who adore you. Walk in there like you own the entire world. Because you do, Becca. You just forgot for a little while. Becca looked out the window. Somewhere out there, Garrett was planning his perfect wedding, probably laughing about the invitation he sent. He had no idea what was about to happen. Okay, Becca said quietly. Okay? What? Okay? I will do it. I will go to that wedding. I will take Julian, and I will take the kids, and I will walk into that place like I own it. Diane grinned from ear to ear. That is my sister. But first, I have to do something. What is that? Becca picked up her phone and found Julian's name. She typed a message. I am ready. Let us do this. All of it. No more hiding. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. A reply came back in less than a minute. I was hoping you would say that. When can I see you? Becca smiled. A real smile this time. Tonight. Come over tonight. It is time you met my sister. And soon, my kids. I will be there, 7 o'clock. Diane read the message over her shoulder. Tonight? You are introducing him tonight? No more waiting. No more hiding. If I am going to do this, I am going all in. Good. It is about time. They cleaned the kitchen, put the evidence in a safe place, and stuck the invitation on the fridge with a magnet. It was a reminder. As Diane was leaving, she turned back. Becca, I am so proud of you. For what? For surviving. For fighting back. For remembering who you are. After Diane left, the apartment was quiet. But this time, the silence felt different. It was calm and purposeful. The invitation was still on the fridge. June 15th. She had 2 months to prepare, to plan, and to transform. 2 months for Garrett to believe he had won. Then, she would show him just how wrong he was. I was not the problem. I know that now. But back then, I believed him. 7 o'clock arrived faster than she expected. She had spent the afternoon cleaning, not because it was dirty, but because it helped calm her down when she felt overwhelmed. She scrubbed the bathroom and vacuumed the floors. She organized the twins' closet, making neat stacks of their clothes. The repetitive motion soothed her racing thoughts. At 6:45, she looked in the mirror. Jeans and a soft sweater. She looked normal, but she did not feel normal. Her phone buzzed. It was Julian. He was parking and would be right up. Her heart skipped a beat. She told herself to breathe. This was Julian. Kind, patient Julian. There was no reason to be nervous. The doorbell rang. She opened it to find him standing there in dark jeans and a simple shirt. He looked at her with those eyes that always made her feel seen. "Hi," he said softly. "How?" He held up a bottle of wine. "I brought this. I hope that is okay." She pulled him inside and kissed him. He dropped the wine and kissed her back. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless. "Hi," she said again. He gave her that warm, genuine laugh. "Hi yourself." They picked up the wine bottle, which was thankfully not broken. In the kitchen, Becca's hand shook as she poured them each a glass. "You are nervous," Julian noticed. "Yes, do not be. It is just me. That is why I am nervous." He looked confused. "I do not understand. Because this is real now. We are not sneaking around anymore. Diane knows about us. Soon the kids will know. And that is terrifying." He put down his wine and took her hands. "Becca, look at me. I am not him. I know you are afraid I will turn into him, but I will not. I am not Garrett. You say that now. I will say it every single day for the rest of our lives, if you need me to." She wanted so badly to believe him. "He told me he loved me, too. He said all the right words, and then he left, I know. So how can I trust that you will not do the same thing?" Julian was quiet for a moment. Then he said something she never expected. "You do not. Not yet. Trust is not just given. It has to be earned. And I have not earned yours yet. But I will, every single day, one day at a time until you believe me." Her throat felt tight. "What if that takes years?" "Then it takes years," he said. "What if I am too broken? What if I can never trust anyone again? Then we will figure that out together." "You are not broken, Becca. You are hurt. There is a difference." The tears started again, and she was so tired of crying. He pulled her into his arms and just held her. When she finally pulled away, she laughed softly. "I am getting your shirt all wet." "I have other shirts. This is starting to be a pattern. First coffee on your laptop, and now this. I am destructive." "You are perfect," he said. "Not even close. To me, you are." She looked up at this kind, patient man. "You investigated Garrett. You built an entire case without telling me." He looked a little embarrassed. "I did. I should have asked first. Why did you not?" "Because I knew you would tell me not to. I knew you would protect him, even though he does not deserve it. So, I did it anyway." "That is pretty arrogant." "Yes, it is. I am sorry. Do not apologize. I am not angry." She paused, thinking. "I am grateful, and terrified, and confused. He is everything Garrett said I did not deserve. Successful, generous, and he treats me like I am the extraordinary one. That terrifies me. Why? Because what if you figure out that I am not? What if you realize Garrett was right? That I am boring and ordinary and not worth the effort?" Julian cupped her face in his hands. "Becca, listen to me. You are not boring or ordinary. You survived 4 years of hell and came out still kind, still caring. That is heroic. I do not feel heroic. Heroes rarely do." Just then the doorbell rang. "That is Diane. Should I hide?" "No," he said. "No more hiding. Remember?" Her sister took one look and grinned. "Am I interrupting?" "Yes, Becca," Becca said. "Good. I wanted to meet the mysterious billionaire boyfriend." Julian extended his hand. "Julian Ashford. It is nice to meet you." Diane shook his hand and studied him. "Okay, I approve. You cannot approve after 30 seconds. Just watch me. He has kind eyes, and he made you smile. That is more than Garrett did in 10 years. So, the wedding, what is the plan?" They all sat at her wobbly kitchen table. "I think we should go." "All of us," Julian said. "You, the kids, and Diane?" "I would not miss this for the world," Diane chimed in. "But we need to be smart," Julian continued. "Garrett does not know about me, so when we show up, it has to be impactful." "How?" Becca asked. "A private jet. That is step 1. We arrive in style. I like how you think, Diane grinned. But that is not the main event, Julian said. He pulled out his phone and showed them a screen. Becca's eyes went wide. You want to show this to Tessa's family at the wedding? Not during the ceremony, but at the reception, discreetly. Her father should know what kind of man he is investing in. Tessa's family is wealthy, and Garrett's business is failing. He has been hiding losses. Her family is about to give him $1 million based on lies. If we do not say something, they will lose everything. Becca shook her head. So this is not about revenge. It is about protecting them. Partly, Julian admitted, but mostly, it is about the truth. Someone needs to stop him. Who else knows about this? Marcus Caldwell, Garrett's business partner. He is the one who documented everything. He feels guilty for not speaking up during your divorce. I remember Marcus. He always seemed nice. He is, and he wants to make this right. They talked for hours, making their plan. When Julian stood to leave, Becca said quietly, "Stay." "Are you sure?" he asked. "No, but stay anyway." They lay in her small bed, not touching. "Tell me about the first time you saw me," she whispered in the dark. "At the coffee shop. You rushed in. A mess of hair and bags. You ordered a large black coffee, and then you laughed. A real, genuine laugh. I thought, I want to know the person who laughs like that. Then I spilled coffee on your laptop. Best coffee spill of my life," he said. "Why me?" "You could have anyone, because you are real. When I talk to you, I am not a billionaire. I am just Julian. And you like me anyway. I do like you. That is the problem. How is that a problem? Because liking you means trusting you. And trusting you means risking everything again. And I do not know if I can survive being broken again." He rolled to face her. "Then do not think about forever. Just think about right now. Are you okay right now?" "Yes." "Then that is enough." She kissed him. A mix of fear and hope. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Becca took the evidence to her lawyer, a sharp woman named Jennifer Martinez. "This is substantial," Jennifer said, her eyes wide. "This is enough to reopen your case and maybe even press criminal charges." Becca thought about it. She realized she did not care what happened to Garrett anymore. She just wanted what was owed to her. "Let us start with reopening the case," she said. "Get a fair settlement." "One step at a time," Jennifer nodded. "This will take months, maybe a year. Garrett will fight this." "Good," Becca said. Then came the hardest part. She needed to tell the twins about Julian. She sat them down after dinner one night. "Mom, you are making your serious face," Emma said. "Are we in trouble?" "No, sweetie. I just need to talk to you." Evan put down his tablet. "Is it about Dad?" "Sort of. It is mostly about me. I have a friend, a good friend, and he would like to meet you both. If that is okay." There was a long silence. Then Evan asked the question she had been dreading. "Is he your boyfriend?" "Because Dad says you will never find anyone as good as him." The words felt like a slap. Becca kept her voice calm. "Your dad said that?" "Yes. He said you are too." He used words I did not understand. "But he said no one would want to date you." Emma nodded. "He said you got lazy and did not take care of yourself. That is why he left." Becca wanted to scream. Instead, she took a deep breath. "Your dad is wrong. I was not lazy. I was taking care of you too, which is the hardest job in the world." "We know that, Mom," Emma said quickly. "As for my friend, his name is Julian. He is kind and funny, and I would really like for you to meet him." When Evan got in a fight at school the next day, Becca knew why. The principal, Mrs. Morrison, called her in. "Evan punched another boy, Tyler Richardson. I am so sorry. That is not like him. He said Tyler was saying mean things about you." Becca's heart sank. She found Evan in the nurse's office with an ice pack on his knuckles. "What happened?" he mumbled. "Tyler said you were dating a billionaire and you were just after his money." He said his dad told him, "Have you ever been told you are not good enough by the one person who should have loved you most?" My ex-husband, Garrett, told our children I was lazy and that no one would ever want me. For years, I believed him. But staying stuck in the past is not an option when you have two amazing kids. This is the story of how I stopped listening to his voice and started fighting for my own happiness. And if you have ever felt small, I hope my story shows you that the best revenge is living a life he cannot touch. I had to tell my children, Evan and Emma, about someone new. His name is Julian, and he is a truly special man. I assured them, no one will ever replace your dad, but I am allowed to be happy, too. Evan looked at me and asked, "Does he make you smile?" Real smiles, not the fake ones you do for Dad. My heart ached that they had noticed. Yes, I promised. Real smiles. After a moment, Evan said, "Then I guess it's okay." That night, I called my friend Diane and screamed into a pillow until my throat was raw. I felt a little better. Diane warned me, "You need to be absolutely sure about Julian. If the kids love him and he leaves, it will break them." Fear crept back in. "I am terrified," I admitted. "Every day I expect him to realize I am not worth it." Diane's voice was firm. "Those are Garrett's words in your head, not the truth. Look at the evidence. Has Julian ever made you feel small or put you down?" "No," I whispered. "He has been nothing but patient and kind." "Then trust that," she said. "Trust the man in front of you, not the ghost in your head." On Saturday, Julian arrived to pick us up. He drove a simple, regular sport utility vehicle. Nothing flashy. The twins were quiet and suspicious in the back seat. "Hi," Julian said warmly. "It is really nice to meet you both." After a long silence, Emma asked, "How much money do you have?" I was mortified, but Julian just laughed. "That is a fair question," he said. "I have more money than I need and less than I want." Evan pointed out, "That is not a real answer." Julian smiled. "You are right. The simple answer is, I have enough to be comfortable and to help the people I care about." "Are you trying to buy us?" Evan asked. His eyes narrowed. "Dad's girlfriend buys us stuff to make us like her." "No," Julian said gently. "I'm not trying to buy you. I just hope you will give me a chance to get to know you." We went to a simple neighborhood park. Julian pushed Emma on the swings and played basketball with Evan. He sat with me on a bench, but gave us space, never trying to hold my hand in front of them. Soon, Emma ran over, yelling, "Julian, can you push me higher?" She had called him by his name. It was a small victory that felt huge. At lunch, they were all laughing and talking, and Julian listened, really listened, to every word the kids said. When we got home, Julian told me, "Your kids are amazing." He saw the worry on my face and kissed me. "I am not going anywhere," he promised. "I am all in. Stop waiting for me to leave." That night, Emma climbed into my bed. "Mom," she whispered, "I like Julian. He is not trying to be Dad. He is just Julian. That is okay." The next morning, Evan came to me. "If you marry Julian, do we have to call him Dad?" he asked. "Never," I told him. "You already have a dad. Julian would just be someone who cares about you." Evan looked relieved. "Okay, he can stick around. He actually listened when I talked about math." 2 weeks later, Garrett called to check in about his wedding to his girlfriend, Tessa. "I know money is tight," he said in a fake, sympathetic voice. "The invitation says formal wear, but it is totally fine if you need to wear something simpler. No one will judge." A slow, hot anger burst in my chest. "I will be appropriately dressed, Garrett," I said, and hung up. I texted Diane, who replied, "Oh, he is going to regret that." Then I texted Julian, "Are you sure about this? All of it?" His response was immediate. "I have never been more sure of anything," he wrote, "especially the jet." I smiled. 4 weeks until Garrett Sullivan learned the biggest lesson of his life. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, everything changed. I got a call from the school principal. My heart stopped. She told me there had been an incident and asked me to come in. I found Evan in the office with a bleeding lip and scraped knuckles. Another boy was crying across from him. The principal explained there was a fight. Evan hit Tyler. I was stunned. My son was a gentle soul who never hit anyone. I knelt in front of him. Why? I asked softly. Evan looked at the floor. He said you were a gold digger, he mumbled. He said you were dating a rich guy for his money and that you are broke and desperate. The other boy's mother started to cry. Why would you say such a thing, Tyler? She asked. Tyler sniffled. My dad said it last night. He works with Mr. Sullivan. He said Garrett Sullivan's ex-wife was dating some billionaire and everyone knows she is just after his money. The world seemed to shrink around me. Garrett had been spreading these disgusting lies to his friends and coworkers. I pulled my son into a hug. You were defending me, I whispered. He was lying about you, Evan cried. I held him tight, my quiet, gentle boy who had gotten into a fight to protect my honor. At that moment, I knew I could not let Garrett get away with this. His cruelty had finally gone too far. Tyler started to cry. Dad said it last night. He said Garrett Sullivan's ex-wife was a gold digger. I just repeated what he said. The room went quiet. Who is your father? Mark Richardson. He works with Mr. Sullivan. Of course, Garrett was spreading rumors everywhere. Becca knelt in front of her son. You defended me. He was lying about you. I know, but we do not hit people, even when they lie. I know you were angry and wanted to protect me, but violence is not the answer. Tears filled Evan's eyes. I am sorry. I know you are, she said, hugging him tightly. They worked it out. Both boys apologized and got detention. In the car, Evan was quiet. How did Dad find out about Julian? He asked. I do not know. I thought we were being careful. Are you angry with me? No, baby. Never with you. But with the situation, very. Why does Evan look like he just lost a boxing match? Diane asked. He was defending my honor. Diane looked at Evan. My man. Do not encourage him, Diane. I am not encouraging a fight. I am just applauding the reason for it. Later that night, Becca called Julian. Garrett knows about us. I do not know how, but he is telling everyone I am just a gold digger using you for your money. Julian was quiet for a moment. Does it bother you what he is saying? Yes. No, I do not know. It bothers me that Evan got into a fight because of it. It bothers me that people are talking. Becca, people will always talk. If you are with me, they will call you a gold digger. If you are alone, they will say you are pathetic. You cannot win that game, so you should stop playing it. It is not that simple. It is exactly that simple. The only opinions that matter are yours, your kids, and maybe your sister's. Everyone else can think whatever they want. It does not feel like enough. What would it take for her to feel closure? She needed Garrett to see her not just surviving, but thriving without him. The next day he called, leaving a message. He said he heard she was dating someone and needed to discuss child support. She immediately deleted it and called her lawyer, Jennifer. Jennifer confirmed his motives. He was trying to find a reason to lower his payments. She advised Becca to ignore him completely and wait for their day in court. That afternoon, her daughter Emma came home with a family portrait she had drawn. It showed Becca, her brother Evan, Emma, and a tall, kind-eyed man. Becca asked who the man was, already knowing the answer. Emma said, "It is Julian. He is part of our family now, is he not?" The honesty in her daughter's voice was startling. Later that night, Julian came over with pizza. He played games with Evan and patiently looked through every single one of Emma's dragon drawings. He told her she was a true artist. When Emma mentioned that art classes were too expensive, Julian looked at Becca. He offered to find a teacher for Emma, a friend who could mentor her. Becca was overwhelmed. He insisted, explaining that talent like Emma's deserved a chance to grow. Julian was incredible with her children. Becca told him so after they were asleep. He simply said they were wonderful kids. He even understood why Evan had gotten into a fight at school, defending his mom's honor. Then Julian turned to her, his expression serious. He told her he was completely committed to her and the children. He was not going to run away. He needed to know if she was ready to stop pushing him away and commit too. She admitted she was scared. He looked around her small, worn-out apartment and said he loved it. It was the place where she had built a new life. In that moment, she kissed him. It was a kiss filled with both fear and hope. She whispered that she was all in. Just then, her phone rang. It was Garrett again. She let it go, and Julian smiled. 2 days later, a call came from a number she did not recognize. It was Patricia Sullivan, Garrett's mother. She insisted they needed to talk. The urgency in her voice made Becca agree to meet at an Italian restaurant the next day at noon. Becca immediately called her sister, Diane. When she explained that Garrett's mother wanted to meet, Diane was shocked. She insisted on coming along, saying it was non-negotiable. Patricia was waiting for them, looking tired and much older. She started by offering Becca a profound apology for her years of cruelty. Becca was speechless. Patricia confessed that she had pushed her son toward his new wife, Tessa, for her family's money and connections. She admitted she had been terribly wrong. Her reason for coming forward now was a complete surprise. Garrett's business was failing, and Tessa's family money was the only thing keeping it from collapse. The wedding was nothing more than a business deal, and Garrett was lying to everyone about his company's health. Patricia explained that Garrett's business partner, Marcus, had told her everything. He felt guilty and had been keeping records of all the deception. She pulled a thick folder from her purse and pushed it across the table. It contained bank statements, emails, and text messages. It was solid proof of every lie Garrett told during their divorce. Patricia said she was giving it to Becca because she deserved justice. She could not change the past, but she hoped this could help build a better future. Becca could only stare at the folder, her hands trembling. Patricia asked her to use it, to stop Garrett from hurting anyone else. For a moment, you almost forgot she had left. Diane and Becca sat in the quiet that remained. Well, that was unexpected. Diane finally broke the silence. I do not even know what to call that. Maybe it was redemption, or maybe it was guilt. Becca opened the folder, her eyes scanning page after page of proof. This is everything we need. It is more than enough. So, what is your next move? Becca closed the folder and met her sister's gaze. I am going to that wedding. I will walk in with Julian and my children, and I am going to show everyone who Rebecca Hartwell is now. Heck yes, Diane said, and they high-fived across the table. For the first time in 4 years, Becca felt a sense of victory. He still sees me as that woman, the one who apologized just for being alive. That version of me is gone. 10 days before the wedding, Garrett called. This time, Becca answered. Hello, Garrett. Becca. Good. I have been trying to call you. I have been busy. Right. Listen, I need to talk to you about the man you are seeing. His name is Julian. That is right, Julian, the billionaire tech founder. Yes, that Julian. A long pause hung on the line. She could almost hear the gears turning in his head. How long have you two been together? Why does that matter to you? It matters because if this is serious, we have to renegotiate everything. The custody agreement, the support payments, all of it. There it was, the real reason for his call. We are not renegotiating a single thing, Garrett. Becca, be logical. If you are with a man who has that kind of money, you do not need my support anymore. Actually, according to the law, I still do. Dating does not change our agreement. We would have to be married for that. The silence stretched even longer this time. Are you planning on marrying him? That is none of your business. It is my business if it impacts my financial obligations. Her anger began to simmer. Your financial obligations. Not your children, not their happiness, but your money. That is all you have ever cared about. That is not fair. Is it not? You have fought me on every single penny for the kids since the day we signed the divorce papers. It was never about them. It was always about winning. I am getting married in 10 days. Can we please not do this right now? You are the one who called me, she reminded him. You brought this up. So, yes, we are doing this now. He let out a deep, condescending sigh she knew all too well. Look, I was trying to be civil about this, but fine. I will see you at the wedding. And please, try to dress appropriately. I know money is tight for you, but Tessa worked so hard on this event. I would hate for you to embarrass her. Every instinct told her to hang up, but instead she said, Do not worry about me. I will be dressed perfectly. Great. And Becca, I know this is difficult, seeing me move on, but I hope we can be adults about this for the children. Of course, for the children. They need to see both of their parents happy. You are absolutely right. They do. So, are we good? We are perfect, she said through gritted teeth. She ended the call and sat shaking with a quiet rage. 15 minutes later, Diane walked in. She always seemed to know. What did that jerk say? Becca recounted every belittling word. I want to punch him, Diane said, pacing the room. I seriously want to punch him right in the face. Get in line, Becca replied. How are you so calm about this? I am not calm. I am furious. But I cannot let him see it. Not until the wedding. Diane stopped moving and looked at her sister. You have really changed. 2 months ago, you would have apologized to him. Now you are fighting back. He gave me no choice. No, Becca, you made a choice. You chose to stop letting him walk all over you. They sat down, and Becca spoke again. I need to talk to you about something. This whole plan, showing up with Julian, looking like I own the world, I am starting to wonder if I am doing it for the wrong reasons. What do you mean by that? Am I doing this to finally be free, or am I just doing it for revenge? Diane thought for a second. Does it have to be one or the other? I think you can want both. You can want your freedom, and also want him to see that he did not break you. But what about Tessa? She is going to be collateral damage when we expose him at her own wedding. That feels so cruel. Then do not think of it as exposing him. Think of it as saving her. You are saving her from the same mistake you made. She might not see it like that. Probably not at first, but one day she will be grateful. Becca took a sip of her tea. You were so full of life when you first met him, Diane said softly. By the time it ended, you were like a ghost. I know. Do you really? Because you still sound like you believe you deserved how he treated you. Say it, Becca. Say you did not deserve it. I did not deserve what he did to me. Louder. I did not deserve what he did. Again, I did not deserve what he did. She was shouting now, years of rage and pain finally pouring out in a flood of tears. Diane just held her. When she finally quieted, her throat was raw, but her spirit felt lighter. Better? Diane asked. A little. Good. Now get angry. Use that anger. Walk into that wedding and show him everything he lost. That night, Becca tossed and turned. At midnight, she gave up and started cleaning. When her world felt chaotic, she cleaned. She scrubbed the entire apartment until her muscles ached and the sun began to rise. At 7 in the morning, Julian called. You did not sleep, did you? How did you know? I just know you. What is wrong? Garrett called yesterday. He wants to lower child support because I am dating you. Of course he does. And he told me to dress appropriately so I would not embarrass his new wife. Julian was silent for a moment. Give me his number. What? No? Why? Because I am going to call him and tell him what I think of a man who talks to you that way. Julian? No. He does not get to make you feel small anymore. This is my fight, Julian. I have to do this myself. Do you understand? He sighed. Yes, it makes sense, but I do not like it. You do not have to like it. You just have to trust me. I do trust you. Completely. They confirmed the plan. Marcus Cowell would be at the wedding. He would discreetly approach Tessa's father and show him the proof of Garrett's deception. 8 days before the wedding, Patricia called again. Rebecca, Garrett knows something is wrong. He is suspicious and keeps asking questions about the business and about Marcus. Be careful. He will be watching you at the wedding. I will. Thank you for the warning. Rebecca, one more thing. I am so proud of you for fighting back. You are stronger than I ever was. She hung up before Becca could say anything. 5 days out, the twins asked about the wedding. Are we really going to Dad's wedding? Emma asked. Yes, we are. Why? Because he invited us, and it is important for you to see both of your parents happy. Are you happy, Mom? Evan asked. I am getting there. Is Julian coming with us? Yes. Good, Emma said with a nod. I like Julian. Me too. He talks to us like we are people, not little kids. 3 days before the wedding, Becca found the dress. Diane took her to a boutique she could never afford. The dress was a stunning emerald green, the exact color Garrett always said washed her out. She looked breathtaking. Oh, heck yes, Diane whispered when she saw her. Dressing room. The dress was perfect, but it was too expensive. Diane smiled and said Julian had already paid for it last week. He had called her, instructing her to take Becca shopping for anything she wanted, his treat. Becca insisted she could not accept it, but Diane urged her to let someone take care of her for a change. Staring at her reflection, Becca saw a confident, strong, and beautiful woman. For the first time in 4 long years, she looked like herself again. 2 days before the event, a text arrived from Garrett. He thanked her for being mature, saying it meant a lot and that the kids were lucky to have her. She read it 3 times before smiling and replying, "See you Saturday." He had no idea what was coming. She had spent so much time trying to be enough for him, never realizing she was the one who had always been enough. The night before the wedding, Becca could not breathe. It was 2 in the morning, and she was on the bathroom floor, her back against the cold tub, in the grips of a panic attack. She tried the breathing exercises, but they did not work. She could call Diane or Julian, but she felt this was her battle to fight. What if this was all a mistake? What if appearing at the wedding with Julian only made things worse for the twins? Was she just using him, proving Garrett right, that she was a gold digger? The thought spiraled, and she pressed her forehead to her knees. Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. He could not sleep either and was thinking about her, telling her how proud he was. With shaking hands, she typed back that she was terrified. He replied instantly, reminding her she was not alone. She wanted to believe him. A moment later, her phone rang with his name on the screen. His voice was soft and warm when she answered. He had sensed the panic in her text and urged her to talk. She confessed she did not know if she could go through with it. He told her she could, replacing her what-ifs with facts. He reminded her she had survived 4 years of hell, raised 2 amazing kids, mostly alone, and had rebuilt her entire life. He called her the strongest person he knew. She did not feel strong. He explained that being human meant being scared, and true strength was moving forward despite the fear. Listening to him breathe on the line, she finally asked him why he chose her. Not the simple story, but the real reason. He was quiet for a moment before answering. He said the first time he saw her, she was exhausted and overwhelmed. But when the barista made a joke, she gave a real laugh in spite of everything. He knew then he wanted to know the person who could find joy when life was hard, the person who just kept going. She closed her eyes as more tears fell. She told him she was a mess, but he gently corrected her, saying she was human. He promised that even if the next day was a disaster, she would survive it just like everything else. He had faith in her because he saw the real her, not the version Garrett tried to create. They talked until the sky grew lighter and her panic finally faded. The fear was gone, replaced by a quiet resolve. At 6 in the morning, she sat with her coffee and took the wedding invitation off the refrigerator. She laughed, a real laugh this time. Garrett had no idea what her true feelings were because he had never cared enough to ask. Diane arrived at 8 with pastries and an overnight bag, announcing a full day of glam. She insisted that today was the day Becca would show him exactly what he lost, walking in like a queen. They spent the morning on hair, makeup, and deep red nails. When they finished, Becca looked in the mirror at a powerful and beautiful woman she almost did not recognize. The twins came home and stopped in the doorway, their eyes wide. Emma told her she looked like a princess, and Evan shyly agreed she looked pretty. Diane helped Becca into the emerald dress and zipped it up. She was unrecognizable and yet completely herself. Julian arrived at 1 o'clock, looking impossibly handsome in a suit. He stopped and just stared at her, telling her she was absolutely stunning. The twins came out, Emma in a pale blue dress and Evan in a small suit. They piled into a large sport utility vehicle that took them to a private airport. The twins were in awe. They had never seen a private plane before. Julian's pilot met them, and they boarded the jet. It was luxurious, with leather seats and polished wood. The children explored every corner while Becca sat by the window, watching the world shrink below them. She was nervous, but she was ready. During the flight, Diane kept the mood light with funny stories, but Becca's stomach was a bundle of nerves. In just 2 hours, everything would change. A text came through for Julian from a man named Marcus Quell. He confirmed he was at the wedding venue with the evidence and would approach the bride's father during the reception. The plan was in motion. There was no turning back now. After the jet landed, sleek black cars were waiting for them. The twins were thrilled. This was not about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about breaking a pattern and protecting another woman, Tessa, from suffering the same fate Becca had endured. They arrived at a grand estate with rolling lawns and massive white tents decorated with flowers. It was the exact wedding Garrett had always claimed they could never afford. As their cars pulled up to the entrance, other guests arriving in normal vehicles stopped and stared. Julian stepped out first and helped Becca from the car. She stood tall, her emerald dress shining in the sun. Diane and the twins followed. Whispers erupted through the crowd as people recognized her and Julian Ashford. She walked forward with Julian's steadying hand on her back. A flustered wedding planner rushed over, saying there must be some confusion about the guest list. Becca smiled calmly and said her name was Rebecca Hartwell, plus 4 guests. The planner checked her tablet, confused because Garrett had only listed Rebecca, with no mention of children or other guests. There was no space at the assigned table. Julian spoke with quiet authority, assuring the planner they could work something out. The planner's eyes widened in recognition. Of course, she would figure something out immediately. They followed her into the stunning reception area, filled with white flowers and crystal chandeliers. As they entered, the whispers grew louder. Across the lawn, Patricia Sullivan saw them. Becca's former mother-in-law went pale, but then a slow, deliberate smile spread across her face. She walked over, told Rebecca she looked beautiful, and then greeted her grandchildren warmly. Finally, Patricia extended a hand to Julian. I have heard a lot about you. Julian shook her hand warmly. I hope it was all good things. Patricia gave a sad smile, better than he deserved. She turned back to Becca. I am glad you are here. Then she walked away. Diane leaned over. Did Garrett's mother just give you a compliment? I think so. The world is officially upside down. They found their seats near the back. Becca took a deep breath. Across the room, she saw Lydia Monroe, who caught her eye and gave a small, supportive nod. Another ally. The ceremony was starting. Garrett appeared at the altar, looking tanned and perfect in his tuxedo. He scanned the crowd, and then his eyes landed on their table. His expression shifted from shock to confusion, then to anger. His gaze locked onto Julian, and a flicker of recognition dawned in his eyes. Becca just watched him. The music for the bridal march began. As the beautiful bride, Tessa, walked down the aisle, Becca felt a surprising wave of pity for her. The poor girl had no idea who she was really marrying. The ceremony was long and traditional. Becca noticed Garrett kept glancing nervously in her direction. His composure was gone. When it came time for the vows, Garrett's voice shook, and he rushed through his lines. Soon the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. As the guests applauded, Becca clapped politely, knowing the truth would soon come to light. At the reception, champagne flowed and music played. Nosy guests kept approaching Becca, full of questions about her life and the handsome man by her side. This is Julian, she would say calmly. Julian handled every awkward question with charm and grace. When one woman asked how they met, Julian smiled. He said she spilled coffee on his laptop, and it was the best day of his life. He looked at Becca with such love that the guests had no choice but to believe him. They would quickly scurry away, eager to spread the new gossip. Garrett finally approached them while Tessa was busy taking photos. His eyes darted from Becca to Julian, then to the children. You said the children should see both parents moving on, Becca stated plainly. This is part of our future. When Garrett demanded to know who Julian was, Julian introduced himself. Garrett instantly recognized the powerful Ashford name, and his face paled. How long? He stammered. 18 months, Becca replied calmly. Garrett looked as if he had been physically struck. He told her it was inappropriate to bring Julian to his wedding. You invited me, Becca said. You claimed there were no hard feelings. I simply took you at your word. Arrangements for child support. Becca's voice was firm. Not here, and not today. This is your wedding day, so please, enjoy it. She turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone. Julian joined her, with the twins close behind. Diane whispered, That was incredible. You completely shut him down. Becca admitted, I am shaking. You could not tell. That is what counts. They settled at their table and waited for dinner. A man in his mid-40s with kind eyes approached them nervously. Rebecca, it is so good to see you. Marcus, thank you for being here. He shook Julian's hand. Mr. Ashford, I appreciate everything you have done. Please call me Julian, and thank you for your courage. Marcus glanced around to ensure no one was listening. Tessa's father, Richard Brightwell, is here. I plan to talk to him after dinner and show him everything. He can make his own choice then. Becca warned him, Be careful. Garrett is suspicious. I know, Patricia warned me, but this has to be done. He deserves to know what kind of man his daughter is marrying. Marcus then slipped back into the crowd. Becca watched Garrett from across the room. He was speaking with Tessa and pointing toward their table. Tessa looked confused and concerned. She thinks I came here to start trouble, Becca said softly. Diane asked, Well, did you not? No, I came to tell the truth. There is a big difference. An expensive, multi-course dinner was served. Becca's stomach was too tight to eat. so she just moved the food around on her plate. The twins, however, ate with gusto. Children are so resilient. Soon, the speeches began. Tessa's father, Richard Brightwell, a powerful and successful man, stood up first. He praised his daughter and warmly welcomed Garrett into their family and their business. Becca saw Garrett visibly relax. He thought he had already won. Next, Garrett's mother, Patricia, stood. She looked exhausted. Her speech was short and formal. "When families merge, we hope for the best," she said. "We hope for honesty and integrity." As she spoke, she looked directly at Becca. The message was unmistakable. After the best man told a few jokes, the speeches finally ended and the music began. Garrett and Tessa shared their first dance, but they moved together awkwardly, like strangers. Watching them, Becca felt a surprising sense of peace. The anger and grief she had held onto for so long were gone. She turned to Julian and said, "Dance with me." As they swayed on the crowded floor, he pulled her close. "Are you glad you came?" he asked. She thought, "Yes, but not for the reason you think. I needed to see that he is not a monster or a god. He is just a man who makes terrible choices." Julian smiled. "You are an incredible woman," she laughed, a real laugh. "I am working on believing that." Across the dance floor, Becca saw Tessa watching them with a strange expression. Their eyes met, and in that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. They both knew who Garrett really was. 20 minutes later, Marcus approached Richard Brightwell and led him to a quiet room. Becca's heart pounded. This was the moment. Julian squeezed her hand reassuringly. After what felt like an eternity, Richard came out of the room. His face was like stone. He went straight to Tessa and pulled her aside, showing her something on his phone. Her face went pale with shock. Garrett watched them, his confusion turning to panic. Tessa looked from her father to Garrett, shook her head, and said something sharp before turning away. When Garrett tried to follow her, Richard blocked his path. A few minutes later, Richard announced a family emergency. He apologized for the interruption, but the bride and her family had to leave immediately. Guests gasped and whispered among themselves as Tessa walked right past Garrett without a single glance. Her expression was completely blank. Garrett tried to go after her, but Richard stopped him again and whispered something in his ear. Garrett's face turned white. After the Brightwell family departed, the energy in the room died. Garrett stood alone in the center of his own wedding reception, completely isolated. When his mother approached, he pushed her away. Becca knew it was time to go. She gathered the twins as Diane collected their things. On their way out, Garrett blocked their path. What do you do when you are pushed too far? For 4 long years, Becca played the role of the quiet, agreeable ex-wife. She swallowed the lies of a man who had shattered her heart and emptied their accounts. But today, standing at his extravagant wedding to a new woman, she knew she was done. This is a story about the incredible power of speaking the truth. It shows that winning is not about revenge, but about reclaiming your freedom. If you have ever felt like your voice did not matter, this story is for you. "What did you do?" Garrett hissed, his face a mask of fury. Becca met his gaze without flinching. "I simply told the truth." He shot back, "You ruined my wedding." A calm strength filled her. "No, Garrett. You ruined your own wedding. You have been lying to everyone for years. You lied to me, you lied to Tessa, and you lied to yourself. I just decided to stop covering for you." His eyes darted to Julian, who stood beside her. "You think he is better than me?" Julian's voice was steady. "I think she deserves someone who knows her worth." On the plane home, Becca's daughter, Emma, fell asleep on Julian's shoulder. Her son, Evan, held her hand tightly. "Mom," he whispered, "did we do something bad to Dad?" Becca squeezed his hand. No, sweetie, we told the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it is always better than a lie. Back in their small apartment, after tucking in the exhausted children, she finally felt a sense of peace. Julian stayed with her. "How do you feel?" he asked. She let out a long breath. Tired, relieved, and for the first time in forever, free. The next morning, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" A woman's voice answered. "Mrs. Hartwell, this is Tessa." Becca sat up straight. It was Garrett's fiancée. "I wanted to call and say thank you," Tessa said, her voice trembling. "Thank you for telling the truth. My father showed me everything, the financial fraud, the hidden money, all of it. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life." Becca was stunned. "I tried to warn you 4 years ago," she said gently. "I know," Tessa admitted. "I thought you were just jealous. Now I see he does not really love anyone. He just uses people." 3 months later, Becca's life was completely different. The divorce settlement was finalized, and it was more than fair. The evidence she presented was undeniable. She received everything she should have gotten 4 years ago. With the new financial stability, she quit her second job. Now she had time to breathe and to be with her kids. One Saturday morning, she was making breakfast in her new, sunny apartment. Her children, Emma and Evan, were happy. Julian was there, a comfortable part of their lives, attempting to make pancakes that were terribly lopsided but tasted wonderful. An expensive envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a handwritten note from Garrett. It read, "You were right. I am sorry. I do not expect you to forgive me, but I am trying to be a better father for our kids." Becca read it and felt a quiet sense of closure. She did not need his apology, but she was glad he was trying for the children's sake. Later that day, friends and family filled her new home with laughter and warmth, helping her unpack. Standing in the middle of the beautiful chaos, Becca smiled. This was not a perfect life, but it was her life. And that was everything. A fair division of assets, and everything she had requested. It also included a handwritten note from Garrett. It said, "You were right. I am sorry. I know you will not forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I see it now. I am trying to be a better person for our children. Thank you for never giving up on them, even when I did." Becca read the note twice. In the kitchen, Julian was attempting to make pancakes for the kids. She looked around her new apartment. It was bigger and filled with sunlight. She had just moved in, and while boxes were still everywhere, it was all hers. "Are you all right?" Julian asked, flipping a lopsided pancake. "Yes, just thinking." He saw the letter. "What is that?" "A settlement offer from Garrett. And an apology." Julian raised his eyebrows. "An apology? That is a surprise." "It is," she agreed. "How do you feel about it?" She paused and truly considered the question. "I do not know," she said, "but I think I feel free. I do not need his apology, but I am glad he wants to be better for the children. You see generosity, but I feel freedom. There is a real difference." The twins then burst into the room, still debating who had reached the bathroom first. Emma asked, "Can we please have pancakes?" "That is exactly what I'm making," Julian answered. Evan looked at them and announced, "They're kind of lumpy." Becca started to correct him, but Julian just laughed. "You are right," he admitted. "They look terrible, but I promise they taste great." The four of them sat at her small, wobbly kitchen table. It was a table full of history. A little later, her friend Diane arrived with coffee, donuts, and her own children. The apartment was soon filled with a beautiful, chaotic noise. Standing in the middle of it all, Becca felt a deep sense of peace. The doorbell suddenly rang. When Julian opened it, Marcus Caldwell was standing there with a bottle of wine. "I hope this is a good time," he said. "I wanted to congratulate you." Becca welcomed him inside. Marcus looked around the new apartment and smiled. You actually did it. No, Becca corrected him gently. We did it. You were a part of this. He shook his head. I only gave you the proof. You did the hard work. You survived. They talked for a while, discussing the collapse of Garrett's company and the quiet aftermath. Marcus explained that Garrett was out. The board had forced his resignation, and the company was slowly healing. Becca was genuinely relieved to hear it. Later that evening, Garrett's mother, Patricia, called. The conversation was brief but startlingly sincere. She thanked Becca for showing her son mercy when she could have sent him to prison. Patricia said it took real strength, and that Garrett was finally facing his consequences. After the twins were in bed, she and Julian sat on her small balcony overlooking a quiet park. She turned to him and asked the question that had been on her mind. Do you ever regret getting tangled up in all my chaos? Julian's answer was immediate. Never. He said he knew she needed him most when she was trying to push him away. Becca leaned into him, feeling safe. For the first time, she said the words out loud. I love you. And when he said it back, it felt solid and true. As they watched the sunset, he asked what she wanted for their future. Her answer was simple. Just this. A peaceful, normal life. Later that night, a message came from Tessa, who was going back to school for art history. Tessa thanked her for proving that it is never too late to start over. Becca replied with encouragement, then put her phone away. In that quiet moment, a powerful realization hit her. For years, she had craved Garrett's validation. Now she understood his opinion was worthless. The only one that mattered was her own. She was not just a collection of roles, but simply Rebecca, and she was enough. 1 year later, everything had changed. Becca was in the kitchen of a house she had bought with her own money. It was a modest home with a yard for the twins and their new puppy, Sunshine. Julian was at the stove, making breakfast. His pancakes were even improving. As her mother, Diane, set the table for a family dinner, Becca took it all in. She once heard that living well is the best revenge, but she had learned a deeper truth. The real victory was building a life so happy that the past had no power over her. When Garrett texted asking if the kids could attend his 41st birthday, she agreed without a second thought. He was just someone from her past now, a person who had inadvertently taught her that her value was never determined by someone else's inability to see it. Soon the house was filled with the laughter of her closest friends and family. Dinner was a loud, messy, and perfect affair. Afterward, her daughter Emma climbed into her lap and asked a simple question. Are you happy? Looking at the beautiful chaos of her new life, Becca answered honestly, yes, I am really good. Later that night, she found herself sitting on the bathroom floor, just as she had a year before. This time, however, the tears were not from panic, but from healing. Julian sat beside her in silence. I survived, she whispered. He shook his head gently. You did more than that. You thrived. She rested her head on his shoulder and thanked him for seeing her when she could not see herself. In that moment, she knew she had found what she was looking for. It was not revenge or justice, but peace and freedom. That was my journey to taking my power back. If you have ever felt forgotten or worthless, please know that you are not alone and you possess incredible strength. If this story touched you, please press the like button so others who need this message can find it. I would love to hear your own story of standing up for yourself in the comments below. For more stories about new beginnings, please subscribe and turn on notifications. You can help someone else by sharing this video with a person who needs a reminder of their own power. Every single interaction helps our community of survivors grow stronger. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. Always remember, your worth is never defined by those who fail to see it. Keep on fighting and keep on thriving. This content was carefully researched, crafted, and manually edited by our team to bring you meaningful lessons and inspiration. Every story we share is designed to remind you of your own strength.